So like Christian mentioned, so I graduated from the Next 36 a few years ago, where I started a accounting automation software company. Can you think of anything more boring than that? So we did that for a while, and then after that I joined Top Hat, was early marketing there. Top Hat's at about 10 million ARR, I think, by now, and has raised about 50 million. And a couple years ago I joined CareGuide as the first marketing hire and 6th person overall, and so I'm the VP of marketing there now. And so what CareGuide does is our vertically specific marketplaces are defining the future of the care industry. So we run these vertically focused marketplaces where people can find care and find jobs in the care space. And then once they find a match, we help them manage their household payroll. And so, over the last few years, we've experienced some handsome revenue growth. So this is a look at our yearly ARR and kind of the path to 5 million ARR for us. And so really, what's behind this is a lot of our marketing and growth tactics. And we've been able to do this incredibly efficiently, I think. And so, yeah, I'm going to share with you kind of how we did that. Another point about CareGuide, we might be the most diverse startup in Canada. I welcome any contenders. But we have, over 50% women. We have people who work at CareGuide in literally every age range, from their teens up until their 60s. We have, plenty of folks who are visible minorities from many different religious backgrounds, and a minority of white men. So yeah, I thought it would be helpful to frame this discussion in terms of how we think about marketing and how I think about marketing as a marketing leader. And I think you could take this and apply it to any channels that you're running. So if you're running SEO, I think this type of mentality applies to channel-specific approaches as well. So obviously, you want your output to be greater than your input. And so pretty much what goes in from a marketing perspective is spend, and what you want to come out is revenue, obviously. And the way I look at spend for marketing is you basically are always making the decision whether to put it toward people or toward performance marketing. So I think of performance marketing as anything that's TVC, any tools you're using, and we in fact even break this out into experimental versus baseline, so that we would know at any given point if we needed to lower our costs, what would be the experimental that we could cut to and put toward the baseline. Or do we hire a person, right? So if you're running a CPC campaign, do you put $50,000 toward the actual campaign, or do you hire somebody to run it? And so this is what we're kind of always toggling between as marketers. Right, so there are your levers. And so the way we think about this, and I'm not sure if this is unique, but we kind of look at the entire marketing entity. How are we doing as a team, and how is our performance marketing doing? And so these are all made up numbers, but what are we spending on a monthly basis on performance spend? How much are we paying people? So what is our total marketing cost? And we actually do this on a channel basis. So if we add one person to email, what does adding that person's salary and what we spend on email output? And so you can tell, like, I added this person to this channel, have we actually seen the output grow proportionally or not? And then that's how we measure our efficiency. So we look at what's our revenue per person, how much are we spending on performance marketing per person, what is the cost of $1? Like, if we put it into the performance marketing, how much does a dollar bring us, and what is the cost of our full marketing team of $1? And then we look at our LTV to measure our ROI. So I think like this is important because it generally frames an approach to marketing, which is, it's holistic. Like, it's not just about the ad spend, it's important to measure your team and even your channels efficiently. So if I'm running social media, if you really want to sparkle and impress your manager, I would say you could report to them on, this is what we're spending on Facebook ads, this is what we're paying me, and then this is what we're getting. And that's like the full funnel view. And so to scale efficiently, these two levers are where we have to try to automate and systematize. And this is really how we've been able to run with a lean team. So that graphic you saw, we've never been a marketing team of more than 4 people. And in fact, usually we're 3 full-time people with 1 co-op. And the way that we're able to do that and keep this really tight is by automating and systematizing every step of the way. So that's what we're going to get into. I'm not timing this, Christian, so.
Don't feel like you need to.
Okay. Cool. So there's pretty much a framework that we follow to navigate all of this. And so at any given time, we're doing pretty much all of these 3 things simultaneously. So we're always trying to discover and test new channels to expand our channel breadth. So you saw that I had the baseline and experimental there. So there's always kind of these baseline channels that we're running, and then things that we're trying out that are experimental to see how we can grow that way. Then we take those baseline channels and we try to scale them. And so any channel that's been profitable, we think about how can we take this channel to its logical extreme such that we tap out the potential of this channel. And then along the way, we're consistently automating processes and channels. So we actually actively look for opportunities to automate, and this is how we're able to expand our internal bandwidth. So for example, you take a person who's running SEM ads, and we actively look at ways that we can automate the step processes here, so that one, we can just run more efficiently, and two, it also allows good people to always be working on new things. So if you've got a rock star employee, I hate when people say rock star, but someone who's super great, it's a strong retention method to have that smart person who's killing it, working on new things, rather than like hiring every time for someone to try out something new, and it provides career opportunities for them too. So these are kind of the things that we're always looking at doing. And so the process, or the framework, is this. So the first thing is coming up with the ideas. We manually test them. We validate to see whether it's worth it. We hack together an automation from our marketing team, and then we consider how we can scale this out. So I thought it might be helpful to look at this exercise, go through this for one of our channels, and then we can go through like some of the hacks that we've come up with from some popular channels. And we can stop if there's questions along the way, yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is an example of one of our channels. We call it job syndication, and this is the subscription growth over the last few months or so. And so you can see like, this is an example of us like, is there something here? And then like turning it up, starting to automate, and then scaling it. So you can imagine that continues. So the first step of the process is coming up with the ideas. So I think of this as partying where your customers party. And so what this looks like is brainstorming where your potential customers are currently satisfying a need that they have. So presumably, people are finding some kind of roundabout solution or proxy solution to the problem that you're trying to solve somewhere. And so we list all of the surface areas that people are going to currently find a solution to that problem. So we literally write out a list. And a helpful practice that I found super fruitful is trying to search for a solution to your problem as if you were a customer. And so with this job syndication channel, I was like, okay, I'm a family looking for a nanny, or I'm a nanny looking for a job. What does this look like? And so typing into Google, nanny jobs Toronto, and whatever comes up, you can see that that's probably where people are going to find the solution to that problem. For us, people are going to job boards. And so it made perfect sense that this is something that we would start to try and infiltrate. So we're like, okay, people are looking for jobs on job boards, not a super genius discovery, right? And so we're like, how do we, what's our foray into this? And so the next step was manually testing this. And I mean, I was, like I said, I was one of the first, I was the first marketing hire at CareGuide, so this was me myself testing, posting it super manually. And so we, basically what this looked like was attaching UTM parameters to a link or a post, and then doing it from your personal computer or your email or your own personal phone, and creating kind of a scientific and contained experiment to track the results. So this was manually posting a selection of our jobs on a handful of job boards. So like going into our database, pulling up jobs, adding UTM parameters, posting them on the job boards, and then going and checking Google Analytics and seeing, did anybody click this? Okay, cool, we got some traffic. Then what did they do? Did they sign up? And ultimately, did anybody pay? And so, we're like, okay, yes, we did this manually, people clicked it, people paid, there's something here. And this step here, validation, is to determine whether this channel is worth continuing to invest in. And one, yeah?
Sorry, is your platform an e-commerce platform?
Oh yeah, so we're a marketplace.
Okay.
Yeah, so imagine.
So were you able to track the UTMs through like e-commerce tracking and analytics, or?
So, okay, so maybe I should step back for a sec. So, if you guys are familiar with the concept of UTM parameters, these are parameters that you can add on to a link and see the results in Google Analytics. So you would literally just take a link, say facebook.com, add a question mark, UTM_source equals Facebook, and there's 5 that you can use. I would just look them up, see what they are. And that translates to Google Analytics, where you would look up UTM source, and you can see, did anybody come from this link that I posted? So we would take one of our links from our marketplace. So people are posting jobs, I'm looking for a nanny. Take that link, add UTM parameters to the URL. You literally just type it in, and that's your link, and then post it, and then go to Google Analytics and see, did anybody click on that link? And you would know because of the unique UTM parameters you added.
Yeah, but did you, is there like a sale at any point? And do you tie that UTM into a sale? Or?
That's right, yeah. So you can either set up goals in GA, or we do this through our database. We actually have a visits table.
Okay.
And so we can attach the visit to the user and then see what they did.
Okay, so you
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. So you do that sale, or you append that sale in GA or in your database?
You can do either. So like you can set up these goals in GA, in the admin section of Google Analytics. Yeah, okay. And then for us, our database is North Star, like the absolute truth.
Okay.
So we would rely on our database.
That's exactly what I was asking or kind
Cool.
of wondering, is if you reference the database, or because I've done some stuff through like e-commerce tracking and analytics, and it's
Yeah, Google Analytics is like a good proxy, but if you can query your database,
I always am like the truth is in the database, right?
That's
And
how we
pass
operate.
those into there, right?
Totally, yeah. So, so then I'm like, okay, if I tagged this, UTM source is Indeed and the UTM content is whatever, I go up in GA, I'm like, okay, there they are, we've got some traffic, or I call query my database and can see like people paid from this link. So there's something here. Cool. So, is this channel worth continuing to invest in, i.e., should I try to automate this thing? And one thing to consider is the pool of candidates even large enough? Like, for example, Facebook, 1 billion people, for us, most of them are going to be parents or have pets, so yeah, this pool is large enough, versus is there some platform you're trying to scrape where there's only ever going to be a maximum of 50 emails that you can get? Probably not worth putting a ton of time investing in. And then, are the economics attractive? So again, this is a look at the input versus the output. So how much did we spend on this, including how much time did we put into it, versus what did we get from it? So if it cost us, $5 to post a job, and then we made a sale for $100, duh, like easy yes. And then another thing that I'm not sure everybody does this, but we also look at the impact on network effects and liquidity. So we're a marketplace, right? So our product is actually having nannies on the platform so that you as a family can find a match. Our product isn't our website, it's this liquidity. And so what we did was come up with a way to attribute a dollar value to these tertiary benefits, like liquidity and network effects, and use that in our calculation as well. So we know, like, okay, we put $5 in, yes, we got $100 sale, but we also got these other tertiary benefits that we can quantify. And so at this step, we're just trying to validate, is there something here? Yeah.
When you're saying that, let's say you hire headcount, then you get that revenue increase, how do you measure the direct correlation? I mean, what's your tracking mechanism?
So can you say that again?
Like how can you build a case to say that headcount is directly correlated to that revenue increase?
Yeah, so like it's fuzzy, but for example, if I'm the VP of marketing and CareGuide pays me whatever, and I spend 10% of my time on this project, then I would attribute some dollar value to that. Is that what you mean? Like hiring people?
Yeah.
So it's fuzzy, right? Like it's not going to be perfect for sure, but I would try to measure it in some capacity. So how much of your week did you spend on this? If you spent all of your week, then like it's your salary for that week. If you spent half the time, then that's what it would be, and I would include that in the calculation. Yeah.
How do you measure that tertiary effect? Did you give them a specialized link with a UTM, or?
So what we try to do is look at the tertiary benefits of our marketplace. So for example, if we're measuring listings, right? So people posting jobs, we could look at what's our conversion rate from a listing to a user and back that out to add a dollar value to the listing. Yeah. Cool, so here's actually an example. So with this job syndication project, or test, we're like, okay, does the LTV, so lifetime value, the total the total amount of money a customer will pay us over their lifetime with us, is that greater than how much it costs us to get subscription? Like, this needs to be yes. And we're really scientific and methodical about it. So you can see, like, when we're starting out these tests, it's a day-by-day check-in. So how much did we spend to post a job? How many people came and signed up? How many of them turned into listings, right? So people posting jobs. How many of them paid us? And then how much revenue did we get from them? And then you can take a look and see, like, is the amount of money we're getting from these folks larger than what it costs us to acquire them? So this is looking at just performance. And then if you want to get super granular, you could add like your time to that equation as well. So we're like, okay, we found this channel, we've manually tested it, there's something here, and we want to do our first level of automation. And so what I would say here is this is our point to kind of determine what level of automation is justified. So the first thing we try to do is automate from marketing wherever possible and not use engineering resources while we try to prove this thing out a little bit more. And sometimes it just means systematizing before automation isn't yet pragmatic. And so I'll show you what I mean kind of between the two. So one example is of automation is the partner discovery. So in this example, we're like, okay, we've posted jobs on Indeed and ZipRecruiter and Kijiji. How do we go find the next 100 of those? And so what we did was turn this, it's kind of a systematization piece. So we looked at, all right, what are the top 100 job boards, rank them by their Alexa score, and then this is why it's important to do it manually first, is like you kind of get a feel for what the conversation is like with these new partners. Flip this list to a freelancer that we have in the Philippines, and told her, go find the contact information for all of these people. She would take that contact information, put it in a Google Sheet, and we would hook that up. There's a tool called Zapier, which is like a lifesaver. We would hook that up to automatically send a trigger. So it's like, I've manually tested, I know kind of the type of pitch that works for these partners. Just, these are the types of job aggregators we're going after, get me a list of them, an email is automatically triggered, and then instead of me or my colleagues doing this manually, then we set up with people who just email us back first. And so that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit. And then the other onerous part of this process was the bidding. So this was based on a CPC model, which means cost per click. So anytime somebody clicked on the job we posted, we would pay X amount for it. And so the first, actually V0 of this was an Excel sheet that just looked at the ranked the partners, and we would take the 20, spread them out, cut the bottom performing half, invest only in the top half, and that was a super manual process. And then what we did to iterate on that was create an algorithmic point system that was based on the volume from a partner, how much it costs, the revenue that people paid. And so instead of having to do the super manual, cumbersome process of like going in and ranking the people and like cutting them off on my stupid little graph, we just had an algorithm that we made in Excel that would now tell us, okay, every month, this is how much money you should put toward this partner, you should cut this partner by X amount. And then the final version of this, and this is more advanced, is programmatically rules-based. So this is, at this point, we started to involve a tool that would allow us to basically, if X job is performing at whatever capacity, bid up, if it's not, bid down. And like that would apply to other CPC models too. Like Facebook has rule-based bidding now. You can do it on SAM as well. So we hacked together an automation without engineering. And another note about the automation process is I would say is to actively look toward your current processes for opportunities to automate or systematize. So what this looks like in practice is an exercise that we do probably every month at our marketing meetings, where somebody will bring forward something they're working on, atomize each part of the process, like literally write out the step-by-step process, and then we brainstorm where are there opportunities right for automation. So like this isn't meant to be legible, but this is an example of our blogging process, where we're like, okay, this is kind of manual, atomize this, the person wrote out literally like, type into Google for image, download image, like, put into CMS. Wrote out every single step, and then as a marketing crew, we brainstormed, okay, we could probably outsource this. We probably don't need this part. Like, we could probably send this to the freelancer. Could we get the people writing the content for us to also write the social tags and hashtags? So that just allowed us an active process to find opportunities for automation.
So freelancers are part of the automation.
Yeah, so for us, we use like this, so this would be like an example of a systematization rather than true automation. Fiverr, totally. We have this freelancer in the Philippines who's awesome. Mechanical Turk would be a part of that, like anything where it's taking the burden off of your team and the costs are still low. So, once we've done that, then we ask ourselves, how can we take this thing to its logical extreme? And so usually that means either allocating financial or engineering resources. So you can really get up to this point without needing engineering, like that's the whole point of this. And then the point is to ask ourselves, do we use engineering or do we just keep our automation? So that's not a super helpful example. So what I mean by this is we look at what is it costing us, input to output, to have this hacked automation. So what are we paying our freelancers? What is the performance cost? What is the time? And will this scale? Like if we continue to blow this up for a year, what will the cost be in output? First, if we had an engineer work on it, we scope out their time as if it were a cost as well. So okay, we take one engineer a month to build this, and then we wouldn't have to ever pay anything again. And we put a dollar value on the engineer's time, usually just what we would pay a contractor. And then make the decision. Do we use engineering for this? Because they have other, and we also measure opportunity costs of what they might be working on. First, do we keep this automation hacked because it works and it's profitable and we can scale it efficiently? Does that make sense? Okay. So I figured we could go through, I'll basically take you through some of the popular channels that we've done this with. And feel free to just butt in if you have questions. So social. Something you kind of have to do. Usually not worth hiring a full-time social media manager. Not saying you should fire one if you have one. Not saying that. So this is a look at CareGuide's recent social traction week over week. So we were doing basically nothing, and then we started going through this process and we hit something. So this is listings on our platform from social media. So the first step of this, again, this is the same framework. So coming up with ideas, where are people hanging out, where are they partying? So take Facebook for example. Even Facebook has a ton of different surface areas. So there's Facebook groups, there's now this concept of Facebook jobs and marketplace, there's your own page posts, there's Facebook ads. For us, what we noticed was people were starting to form themselves into these Facebook groups. So we're like, okay, how can we infiltrate these? And Facebook jobs. It's a very similar model to that job syndication I just mentioned to you. So we listed out what are the opportunities for us to infiltrate. And then we set out to manually test it. So posted on any and all of these different surface areas with the UTM parameters. And something we use sometimes is this concept of short links. So basically, for example, if you're commenting on Facebook and you want to include a link with UTM parameters, it looks like shit if you have housekeeper.com and then the UTM parameters are exposed. So we use something called a short link, and that just allows us to put the UTM parameters in and the link looks super clean, so we can post it on comments, for example, and you still capture the UTM parameters. So, Alyssa, taking these links, adding UTM parameters, posting them in a bunch of different surface areas, and then checking in on Google Analytics. Did anybody click on these? Was it worth it? And so again, we asked ourselves, is there something here? So our inputs here over time, and it matters who's spending their time on this, right? Is it your VP doing it? Is it your director? Is it a co-op? We would measure that differently. And then the performance spend if you are spending anything. And then what are we getting from it? So what's the traffic? Are people signing up? And are they paying for all things that matter? And so before using engineering, we tried to hack together an automation ourselves. So the first thing we did was posting onto our pages. So take CanadianNanny.ca, for example. The first thing we tried to do was automatically post our jobs. So there's this tool called Zootrock. That's okay. And basically what we would do is automatically feed our jobs into Zootrock, and then Rock would automatically post to our pages. And so the other cool thing here was that you could put in positive keywords and negative keywords into Rock, and it would suggest articles for you. So the idea here was that you could basically post curated content without having to have somebody go and look up articles and like always stay on top of it. And so this was fine, like it brought in some lift. And it was useful enough because again, like you kind of need to have some presence on Facebook. And so that was one way that we automated that. The other cool thing that we found recently is through Facebook Messenger. And so with this new Facebook jobs concept, we can post our jobs into Facebook and then people apply via Messenger. And so we had somebody manually replying to these things, adding the UTM parameters to the links, and to see if anything was there, and it was. So basically what we did is just turn on the Facebook auto response, and you have some difference in conversion, right? So it's a less curated message. You know, this person isn't creating as crafted a message as a response, but we no longer have to have a person answering all of these applications, and so we take some cut for volume and speed. And so that's what we did most recently. And so this, these few things is what has brought that growth, and we've done all that without an ounce of engineering. And now we look to scale, right? So there's sufficient traction. We saw the graph moving up. Is there large enough channel potential? For sure, with Facebook. And for us, this particular automation costs us less than using an engineer's time, so we just keep it. So you can go to any of our social pages. Nobody is manually curating those. They're all from these types of automations.
How long do you allow before you hit a positive ROI? So let's say if it takes you X amount of money to do this automation, but obviously it's going to take time before you can prove a positive ROI.
Yeah, so I guess it depends on your LTV and your business model. So all of these experiments that we run, like I said, they're super scientific and methodical. So we start with a hypothesis. So we're like, okay, we're going to try out Facebook jobs. We're going to spend this amount of time on it. We think in 3 weeks we'll have X results, and then we almost approach it like a scientist would in a lab of like what they are going to expect from the experiment, how long they're going to let it run. And so that's kind of how we start. And then we give ourselves either a time box or an ROI that it has to hit by X time. And if it doesn't meet that, then we cut it. Like if it doesn't meet your expectations and what is reasonable for your business, then we stop investing in it and move on to something else. And then there are times that we'll loop back around and be like, okay, we're going to try, we've tried a bunch of other things. They're working now. They're growing the business. We're going to go back to this and see if we can make it more efficient or do a better job at this time based on what we've learned. And so we'll try to do that as well. But it matters like what the LTV is on your sales and how quickly you get that cash, because that determines how much you can spend and reinvest in the business.
How long is the longest have you experienced?
Like how long we've run an experiment like this?
6 months? Or
No. Much faster than that. Weeks. Like probably the longest we've run something before calling it is a month. Because at a certain point, if you've got a person working on it and you're investing it after a month and it's not working, either you're not doing it right, you need to try something else, or like there's not enough juice here for you to continue investing in it. And so it's like when you're going to validate, like is there something here? If after X period of time you still don't see anything, the answer is no.
After validation.